Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast ever. I'm Hibba, your host and resident hater, and every week I yap in your ears about something work-related. And each season has a theme, and this season we've been hearing from guests who all want to talk about their first time, their first mistakes, their first breakthroughs, their first times doing things that scared them the most. And we all know that's like where the good stuff is. I keep saying that every week, but I really do believe it. You learn so much from the first time you do something. Joining me today to talk about the first time they realized they needed a real system to manage their work is Liz. There's a moment that many of us in HR know where you're busy every single moment of the day, and yet somehow nothing feels like it's getting done. Your inbox owns you. Your to-do list is a graveyard of half-finished priorities, and all the work that actually matters keeps getting pushed to the side, and new work just keeps arriving. So joining me today to talk about the first time they realized they needed a real system to manage their work is Liz Clarke. Liz is a strategic HR leader and founder of Liz Clarke Coaching and Consulting. She has over 10 years of experience in HR, partnering with senior leaders and managing operations. Early in her career, she learned the hard way that working harder isn't the answer when the system itself doesn't make sense. Now, whether participating with leaders internally or through her coaching and consulting work, her North Star is simple: help work make more sense so people can focus their energy on what actually matters. Liz, welcome to the pod.
Happy to be here.
I am so excited. We're finally getting a chance to record this. Just a little behind the scenes look here. I tried to record this episode with Liz maybe 2 other times, and both times I was either sick, which you're kind of hearing me recover a little bit from my sickness. And then the other time something just came up. So Liz has been so patient with me and maybe has exposed that I need some better systems to manage my time when I have to change things. See how I made it all work together? I'm such a dork right now. Okay, but this season, before we get into all the good questions I have for you about the systems we create and how you manage all the wild work that we do as HR, I'm asking every single guest this season, what's something you believed about work early in your career that you've completely unlearned?
That's such a good question. The biggest thing that comes to mind for me is learning that hard work doesn't really get you as far as you think it does. Early on, I took that good student, good girl energy into corporate, and I would do my best to respond to emails as quickly as possible and just check everything off my to-do list and get everything done. And eventually I learned, oh wait, that doesn't actually get you a seat at the table. That doesn't actually, it might, in more entry level roles, it'll definitely move you up to a certain point. But then once you're looking for more of those more senior level positions, when you're really looking to start partnering with leaders, that actually starts working against you. And it gets to a point where you have this amazing portfolio of all these things that you've done for your department and no one cares. It's that was one of the most shocking things that I learned, and had to unlearn it along the way.
Yeah, and hard work. One of the kind of things I had to unlearn about hard work was just because I'm working really hard doesn't mean I'm going to get the promotion I think I'm going to get too. Because that's the other thing where I'm okay, if I work really, really hard, I'll get access to those rooms, that next role, that big promotion, that fat pay increase. And then you realize, oh wait, why am I just getting more work to do?
Right. More work. And sometimes you'll get more work and no promotion, no pay.
Yes.
Just more work.
And then,
then you're handle it. That's great. You can handle it. It means nothing.
Yeah. I'm in my, I don't want to handle it era. I'm I'm good. I'm good. I'm busy. I'm tired. But today I'm pretty pumped to talk to you about this because you are someone I've admired for so long around setting up systems that actually work to help you manage your work. And this feels like a topic I think a lot of HR people are going to relate to because our work feels really overwhelming and chaotic any given day. You can document as much as you can document, but you and I know the second you open the computer and the next crisis is happening, it is hard to keep everything in order and actually have a system. And for a while, I was really rocking with my checklist. And the checklist is not cutting it anymore for me. Yes, it's helpful some days, but other days I'm just I need an actual system to manage all of my work. And I thought that was maybe a project management system, but we'll get to that later. But take us back to that moment where you realized and things were clicking that how you were working wasn't really sustainable. What were you doing day to day before you found a system that actually works for you?
Yeah. So before the system, my day really involved just reacting to whatever came on my plate. So literally the email was my master. It was like I would start work with the email and that's where I would stay and just try to do my best to get to inbox zero. Because to me that meant, okay, if I don't have any new messages coming in, then that is proof that I'm doing an excellent job because look at all these requests that came in and I'm able to fulfill it. But inbox zero is a myth. And eventually I realized that I was just spending all of this time just trying to answer things and triage what came in through the inbox. And when you're spending all your time there, you're not spending any time working on the things that are actually important, that are actually a priority, that move the needle. And it got to a point where I was feeling really burnt out because, again, when people also see, oh, so-and-so is very responsive. Anytime I have a question that just pops into my head, I don't even have to go look at the beautiful new benefit guide that she created for us. I can just ask her like human chat GPT. And so it's like, it just becomes this this self-reinforcing just like loop of reaction. So I was eventually getting to a place where I was feeling really burnt out because it just was not sustainable. And in working with a career coach, because at the time I was just thinking the answer is I just got to get out of here. I just got to leave this job. And I realized in working with that career coach that, oh, actually, no matter where I go, there I am. And the issue is that I am attached to the email, to wherever the work came in. So whether it was like email or Slack or whatever, it's like whatever came onto my plate, like me being reactive to that and responding as quickly as possible in some way helped me feel like I was doing something important, but it wasn't actually the case. So when I finally came to that realization, what I started doing instead was instead of going through all my email, I would just actually focus on what my actual to-do list was for the day. And I would just let email sit. And I found out, oh, not only does nothing burn down, sometimes people would respond back and say, oh, never mind. I actually figured this out already. It's just, you just start to notice like how much of this email is just someone else's stream of conscious thought. How much of this is just something that someone threw into the ether, but they didn't really care about. And it's just, email is just so many different things. And so afterwards, I found that, oh, I'm actually able to get projects done. I'm actually able to have this huge impact, this huge, like measurable impact versus just trying to fill out my performance review at the end of the year and thinking I did so much, but what did I do? Like, what did I actually do? Because I was busy. I was certainly busy, but you have to be able, in order to feel like you have something to show for all of your effort, you have to be intentional about what it is that you're working on up front.
Yeah, that's such an interesting thing. When employees Slack me with a question, sometimes my thought, it's a pet peeve of mine, by the way, when they do this. My first thought is like, did you even think to Google this or like check your email or check our Notion site for this before you asked me? Oh, no, you just decided to ask me again, like I am human ChatGPT. But I do think AI can help a lot with those like recurring questions. But you're right. Like I was in such a flow state with work that I was just like, oh, I'll answer this email, answer the Slack. And then I would pull my head up after a few months and be like, what am I actually doing? Like, what did I do to create any sort of like value or how did I progress on any of my goals? Or was I just like moving work along for everyone else? It's a really interesting question that I think a lot of us feel honestly like tied to our inboxes and being the person who has the answers when everyone asks for HR. But you and I both know that questions are never ending. It can distract you so much from real work. So when you started building these systems in place to get things moving in the right direction, what does that actually mean in practice? Like, what were you doing? How did you get started building systems to actually navigate the massive workload we have ahead of us?
So the first step was figuring out what was actually important for me. Like, what was the priority on my to-do list? What did I actually want to accomplish? And starting with that. So when I was building the system, when I realized I wanted to start there, that's when I started experimenting with ways that I could prioritize that and, juggle everything else without letting anything slip through the cracks or break. And that's when I started experimenting with things like ClickUp, for instance, this project management tool, because the things I wanted to prioritize were usually these major projects that I wanted to get done. And so I was thinking, okay, major project, I need a project management tool. That's a great way that I can focus and get myself out of the inbox to physically be working somewhere else that wasn't a place where I'm actively seeing notifications thrown at me on a constant basis.
I don't. When I'm like, I don't want 8,000 notifications. Like sometimes my Slack goes off, my email goes off, my text goes off, and I'm like, I'm just a girl.
Right.
I don't want to do it anymore. Like, can everyone calm down? So I love that you picked ClickUp. Did you look at like multiple systems? Like how did you, because like I was a project manager, so I know a lot of project manager softwares. So instantly my brain always goes to project management when I think of like systems. I'm like, how do I build a system to project manage correctly? Did you gravitate towards ClickUp? Did you evaluate a bunch of different systems? Like how did you even end up in that direction? You were just like, I need something and that's the thing that's going to work for me.
First, I started off with just good old fashioned Excel, honestly. I was like, let me just be somewhere that's not email. And then I started getting curious about what else was out there. So I did try a few different things like Trello, Asana, Notion gave me hives. And what I liked about ClickUp, it's just too much. What I liked about ClickUp was that it allowed me to be able to see, kind of treat my work like an onion with layers. So I could see multiple projects and projects within projects. And that was really helpful for my brain. And then I realized, wait, literally, I'm doing so much in this role, like not just these projects that I want to do connected to the initiatives, but things like tracking like leaves and all of the different components and communications involved with that. Just all these different sort of micro projects that we deal with in HR, along with the one-off tasks that we have to do. I was like, I need to just, what if I just put everything in this? And that's when I started to really be able to play with the pieces and I could see, okay, what can I actually shift? Like, what do I need to do now? Like, what actually needs my attention right now versus what can wait and not break? And that really changed the game for me, because even if I set the intention for the day to work on something in particular, inevitably something would just be thrown on my plate. Always. But what changed for me is being able to take 5 seconds to figure out for myself, okay, is this actually urgent? Does this actually need me right now in this moment? Or can I just continue with what I was doing and then save that for a later time that makes sense? And just that one pause, it changed so much. Like we live in such a reactive world, honestly, like how we're connected to social media. We have the apps on our phones. Like you can order a package and have it delivered this evening. Like everything is just very instant, and just taking just that pause just to kind of orient yourself, it changes so much.
The pause, the intentional slowdown, I think has been one of the greatest career lessons I have also learned. Because I've always been at startups. I've always been wanting to be the problem solver. I'm the youngest kid of 4. Like I want to prove my value constantly. And so just this moment of something comes to you and taking a pause, even like physically getting up and walking away from your computer before you start to think about it, does this need my attention right now? And also it's like the burden of context shifting too. So like say you're really in something and you get like a pop-up and it's something that's like, oh, we need you right now. But actually, you probably aren't needed right now. And then it just distracted you. And now you have to context shift from something you're working on. Like that's also mentally taxing. Like HR has such a high level of burnout that I'm like, we also have to actively have systems in place so that we're not constantly overextending ourselves, context shifting all the time, really building moments where we can do deep work. And I think it's just interesting because a lot of our work does kind of feel unpredictable. So like how do you build a system that even solves for that unpredictability? You know, we open the computer and we're like, oh, shitstorm today.
Yep.
I'll get to this. Like, what's your like secret tip for trying to build a system around the fact that this job is like kind of unpredictable, maybe like 45% of the time?
Yeah, I'd say the key thing is stop trying to control it. Like stop trying to make it predictable, because it's not. In any system that you try to use to try to make it predictable is going to fail you. Instead, what's been helpful for me is finding a way to work with that unpredictability. So anytime something random pops on your plate, what is your process for figuring out in that moment, okay, do I want to do this now or not? Do I want to do this later? That like, is this actually urgent or is this just loud? Like, like figuring those things out and building your process and your system around that versus trying to, for instance, say, I'm not a huge fan of time blocking. I just feel like it doesn't work.
Really?
So it's
Really?
just like, it's one of those things where you try to try to control like the reactive nature of the work. It's like, okay, in this specific period of time, I'm going to work on these specific things and ignore everything else. But in practice, it's really hard to do that because like, what if it is something urgent that needs your attention right now? Like, how do you know? It's just, and especially if you're in HR, there's this expectation to kind of have this open door policy. And if someone needs to speak to you about something, like, you're available. So it just, you spend more of your time trying to control what can't be controlled versus having a system that helps you to kind of flow through that chaos.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because like I am somebody who would maybe describe herself as like a slight control freak. Like I like to control things, but it's interesting because I love the chaos that is this job. So it's like it's wild to think of. Maybe I just have built really good systems to exactly what you said, to like deal with the chaos in a way that is controlled in my mind. And it's like less like I must control everything and more like I know how to control this specific thing. I don't know. I'm having a lot of self-reflection moments right now as somebody who's like deeply in the thick of work. And I'm like, I need to have a better process for how to deal with everything because I'm very flow state, right? And when I talk about flow, in my life, I'm like, okay, I can context shift and go from this and go from that. Like you said, you're not a fan of time blocking, which I think is so interesting. What does flow feel like in an HR role? And like, how do you know when you've gotten it and even when you've lost it?
So in an HR role, I'd say flow state to me looks like when you open your email, you don't feel the sense of urgency to like go in and read every single thing that's in there. Like you start your day with this intention of what you want to work on and what you're actually excited about. And that's what you focus on. And maybe something does, pop into your awareness or drop onto your plate, but
Always.
You don't feel that anxiousness of like, oh, now I have to do this. And what about this other thing? And so you're kind of mentally living in two different worlds, like the thing you want to work on versus the thing that just popped on your plate. Like, no, you recognize in the moment that this is something you need to work on now or not. And then you just keep it moving and you have time and spaciousness in your day to do things like, dare I say, eat lunch, not at your desk.
Listen, Liz, don't be putting me on blast. I like housed a sandwich 5 minutes before we recorded this episode. And I was literally taking these like giant bites of my sandwich. And Liz was like, okay, God, slow down. Like you don't need to be taking these giant bites in your sandwich.
But we're all guilty of it. It's just, you get into this, when you're in that reactive state and you start noticing things like, oh, like I'm ignoring my hunger cues or, oh, I really want to take a walk outside today. It's gorgeous out, but I can't. When you start kind of like making those sort of excuses for that and really kind of almost like slightly betraying yourself in these many ways, like that to me is a signal. Okay, I've stepped out of the flow state, out of my rhythm, and something else has taken over. And that's when I need to pause and just reorient.
I love that you framed it as a betrayal because you're right. Like me scarfing down a sandwich 5 minutes before this is like kind of ridiculous. I should have made time to eat my lunch in a timely manner. I have one coworker, Madison. She's been on the pod before and she'll probably be back in the future. She, for a while, I was like only eating on meetings with her because it was like a meeting where I could actually like be safe and be myself and just get a minute to myself. And she was like, you're always eating on meetings with us. Like, do you have to be always eating on meetings with us? And I'm like, listen, I don't have any other safe space. Okay. This is my safe space. Like other meetings are really serious. This is our one-on-one. I just want to be able to eat. And I mean, it was really good feedback she gave me because I was like, I don't want her to feel like I'm abusing also our one-on-ones together and using that as a sense to like, so I could eat my snack or do whatever. So now I try not to eat as much on meetings with her because she was like, you're always eating on these meetings. And I feel like you're not like paying attention to me. And I was like, that's fair. But like, I don't know, the betrayal to oneself and honestly to like our working relationships is something that is really interesting when you think about flow state and like setting your boundaries up correctly. because it could make a big difference. Like if I had 5 minutes to myself to eat my sandwich in peace versus trying to multitask eating a critical human need and then being present in a meeting, which is very hard when your mouth is full of food, as my mom would tell me to stop eating with my mouth full. I think there's a really interesting relationship too between having a good system in place and avoiding burnout. And you talked about it earlier, like you were feeling this like overwhelming sense of burnout when you didn't have a system in place. When you think about burnout, is it really a workload problem or could it be so much more? Like I think it has so many definitions. So yes, it can be more, but I do think our workload is a primary contributor to burnout.
It's a bit of both. And I would say that, dare I say that for many people, they're experiencing burnout from like mentally holding all of that work before they've even reached the point of like actual objectively large workload. Just holding all of these different things in your head, trying to remember like what you're thinking about in the last meeting and what you wanted to say to that stakeholder, while also trying to remember where you left off on that project you were working on. Just the mental holding of that to your body, it feels like I'm not safe. There's something I'm missing and I'm responsible for it. And if I don't make sure that I'm getting ahead of this, then there's going to be a problem and it's going to be all my fault. Like that's a ton of responsibility. It's a ton of weight on your nervous system. And that can even manifest itself in ways like aches and pains. Like all of a sudden you're experiencing back pain out of nowhere. You don't know what happened. It's because you're still holding that meeting from last Tuesday in your head.
A breaking point for me was like 2 weeks ago. I was like fighting an invisible battle with my CEO in the shower. I was like in the shower trying to like wash my hair. And I was like, man, if I had only said this, then I could have said that. And then it could have been this. And I was like, what the fuck? Like I literally got out of the shower and I was like, I am not doing that again. That is my safe space to like be creative and to relax. And I don't need to bring my tension into my showers now. But it was like so funny because you're right. Like a back pain, a tension, a neck thing, like a lot of our burnout and our overactivity of work, honestly, I think does manifest as like physical symptoms in your body. And we have to be mindful of that. And this job has like such a high burnout rate. Like they did a study a few years ago where they were saying HR people had the highest rate of job change on LinkedIn, which like they attributed to being like highly burnt out from the environments they were in to like moving to new environments. No one's really done a study on HR and burnout, but I bet anyone listening to this podcast would say it's one of the most like high burnout roles at any company other than CEO. CEO is responsible for the future of your company, but it is interesting how it manifests. And I do think things like systems can actually help alleviate that. Also, we do so much work, like what you were saying earlier in the episode, where like you would get to your performance review and you would be like, look at all these things I did. And I was like, I feel like we do a lot of work in HR, but because we don't document it or have it in a system or write it down somewhere sometimes, we forget that even the little things we do often contribute to such a bigger thing.
Right.
And having a system in place to show you like, oh, I am doing like maybe 2 people's jobs. Like that's actually untenable. And you can start to have a conversation with your manager, with their, like you can start having a conversation more about like, what is a reasonable workload for someone at my level and what should be expected of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very interesting. Okay. But the thing that I have to ask about tools. So you mentioned ClickUp, but are there any other tools or habits that have made a big difference for you or things that you potentially would never go back on?
You know, so I do love a good tool. I do love ClickUp, but I would say that even before you even get to the tool, first setting that intention of figuring out, okay, what is it that's my priority for the day? Like, what is the thing that's most important? The one thing that's most important for me to work on.
Like you do it every morning? Like every morning you're like, I'm going to write this down?
Yep. And also identifying like your urgencies. I like to call them urgency signals. So like, what are the things where if something does get thrown on my plate, like what are the handful of things, maybe 2 or 3 criteria it needs to meet to actually now be able to have my attention? Being able, and that's usually not going to change every single day, but it's like when you come prepared for the day in that way, then you're proactive about all of the chaos that you're about to step into. And establishing that early was critical before even getting the tool. Because the tool is a support system. It'll support whatever it is that you're already doing mentally. But if you bring chaos into the tool, it's just going to turn into more chaos. And then it's just another thing you have to manage. And it's like, oh, I got to clean this up. I got to figure out how to automate it. I got to do all this stuff because you haven't first figured out, okay, but how do I actually dictate what is a priority for me? Like, how do I actually dictate when something needs to get done? And then you use the tool to help make that real.
I love this idea that you're talking about, like using your attention as a currency too. So we think of a lot of like our time as also a current, obviously, like you could think about your average billable rate if you take your salary and then do all this. But I like this idea of like your attention is the most important thing. So setting that intention at the beginning of the day and then having a system to filter through, does this need my brain power and thought on it or not? Because that context shift, that burden of shifting between them, I think it is taxing in a way that I don't know if science has studied yet. But as somebody who does 2 jobs, that shifting can make you feel like you've just like run a marathon at the end of the day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And people used to be like, oh, that's your superpower, Yeaaaah. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I want this origin story. Like, this might be my villain story, honestly. Like, it might be my villain story. He's like, I'm not really sure. I'm hoping, but like, I'm not really sure. So it is really interesting. Like, I love that you talk through the lens of how to filter through like what's worth your attention or not, because in corporate America, everything is urgent. How did we end up like this? Like, how did we end up with everything being urgent? I'm so confused by this like overwhelming sense of urgency everyone seems to have. I'm like, relax. We're sending emails.
Right. Touch grass.
Breathe air. Leave me alone. Get the hell out of my DMs. No, but like, it's so true. And also like I've worked at a lot of startups where candidly at startups, it feels like it's worse where like everything is urgent versus at big companies I've worked at. People are like, okay, we'll reconvene in 2 weeks to talk about this thing. I'm like, great. 2 weeks is great. At a startup, it's like, can I talk to you in 2 minutes? I'm like, can I breathe for a second? Can I have a thought to myself before you ask me what I think about it? But I think it is really interesting because this like everything is urgent is really just proving to me that like people don't actually understand what's a priority and what's not.
Right.
Like, why did you make up that priority? What would you say to HR people who are listening right now and thinking, I don't have time to build a system I can barely keep up?
So, dare I say, you actually already are operating in a system. Like you have built your own system, a way to cope with madness. Unfortunately, it just is not working. It's creating an outcome that you do not like. So instead of thinking about it as like, oh, I have to take all this time to build this new thing and figure out this new tool and all this stuff, like instead, what you're really doing is just identifying the part in your system that currently does not work and then just tweaking that. Often it's a minor change. Like maybe you're actually just literally removing a step in your current process, but you're already operating within one. It's just a matter of figuring out where is the point in that friction point in that loop that's keeping you stuck, and then dealing with that one thing at a time.
Yeah. One thing at a time is a good piece of advice too. Cause it's like, there's so much happening every day. The other interesting thing is I saw this Claude co-work use case where you can actually use Claude to like read your emails and build a priority list for you. I have not experimented with it yet, but I'm getting there. Like I'm getting all my skills set up and I'm thinking about it because even just having someone to filter through the emails to tell me like what's urgent and what's not, because I get like 1,000 spam emails a day. I'm like, first of all, who gave my email to somebody on earth? Because I cannot get out of some of these emails that I've never ever subscribed for, but here I am being held hostage by them in my inbox. And so it's something I think about quite a bit is like AI. And while I've not avoided talking about it in this episode, even though it was my hope and dream to do so, I think could be a really helpful tool in helping people figure out what system works for them too.
AI is amazing at so many things. And also it's kind of basically just another tool. So AI can certainly help you prioritize your inbox if you first know what you want to prioritize and what you do not want to prioritize and why, because you got to teach it before it can do it for you.
That's the hard part. You got to teach it before it does it for you. Because I'm like, can it just do it for me? Can it just do it for me? As we've been talking about like these systems you've put into place, like how it's made work better for you and made work more sustainable and alleviated hopefully your burnout, like how have having these systems changed the way you also perceive like your work, leaders, maybe others on your team? I'm really curious about that.
In all honesty,
I know my answer.
I feel like if anyone listening to this, wants a system to like help you with your work, do it for you. Like, don't do it just because there's this hope that, leadership or other people on your team will kind of see you as like this reliable go-getter type person. Because what I have found in practice is that doesn't really happen. What ends up happening is they just say, oh, you can handle work. Let's give you more work. But again, completing the most work does not guarantee you a seat at the table. Completing the work that they actually care about, and good luck trying to find it because half of them don't know what their priorities are. Like that's what helps. But like implement the system for you so that your workday can be so much easier, so that you can prioritize the things that matter for you and for your own career progression. Like I think HR people always need to be thinking about their career, their future steps. And that comes with making sure that the projects that you're working on, the initiatives that you're working on, that they look real good on your resume. So focus on you, prioritize what you need so that you can do your work in a sustainable way. And so it feels much better.
Yeah. Has it, as you talk about that, it's really interesting. I had a boss who used to want to make me work in the same way she worked. And it was really frustrating for me personally because I was like, I don't work like that. Like that system doesn't work for me. So I love that you talked about doing it for you, because at the end of the day, like it has to be something you want to do every day, right? Like, why are you going to implement something that just because somebody else told you to do it that way, now you have to do it the way they do it, and then you're just irritated? Nothing irritates me more than someone being like, you should do it the way I do it. And I'm like, wrong. I should do it the way we can both get to the solution in different ways. And guess what? That's perfect.
Exactly.
So I think that's really interesting. I want to touch on like what building systems has helped you understand about leaders, because you said something that made me laugh a little bit where you were like, they don't even know their priorities. Please say more about that, because that was going to be my response too.
Yeah, leaders are human, and humans find it really hard to figure out what their priorities are. And, in fairness, it's difficult because it requires trade-offs. Like you can't have everything you want whenever you want it, right? You have to figure out what's the direction you want to go in and why, and what are you actively choosing not to do. And that gets risky because that means that, things just maybe don't get done in the exact way that you want it to get done or would prefer it to get done. It means that you're saying no to certain other opportunities. And so when something is risky, humans get scared. And that's just a natural thing. Unfortunately, most humans, and as a result, most leaders just don't have that kind of skill development to be able to identify for themselves, okay, what is the actual priority here? So I can then communicate it to my team and the rest of the company. And oftentimes they're sitting there wondering, oh, should I work on this? Should I work on that? I don't know. And they're just as reactive as everyone else. And then your entire workplace is filled with a bunch of reactive people running around with their heads on fire.
I am having PTSD. I'm just kidding. I've worked at places where it's like that. It's so frustrating. And the burnout so high. And the ability to like do anything good feels impossible. And so you're just constantly irritated every day because you're like, I thought that was the priority yesterday. The priority is apparently different today. What the hell? And so I do feel lucky I work with an executive team now that does not do that nonsense, because I think it would really irritate me. But there was a time in the company where we were not as good as we are now. And then it took us coming into a year, and then my CEO giving the year, it was like the word of the year is focus. And he was like, we need to focus on the things that actually move the needle. And we saw like a decent amount of change that year. And then we came into the next year and we were like, well, we kind of like focus, so maybe we'll just keep going with focus. But we built that muscle as an organization over like almost 3 years. And I think it took us being like, we weren't going to hit some goals and things were kind of chaotic, and us continuing to come back to like the conversation of this isn't working. We have to be clear with people. Employees are saying they don't know how their work contributes to our company goals. Like, we know motivation at work and productivity at work is you need to be able to see that your work product is contributing to this like bigger, greater thing, at work. And so when we really made the effort to do that, it was like a muscle we built over years. And like, I think we're in a much better state today because we had to learn those hardships. And I had a leadership team that was willing to work on this together. We were all feeling the same pain. And we decided to move in the right direction. I think the average person probably might not be as lucky with their leadership team, and it can cause chaos. So if you are wondering, like, what am I doing here? Why does all priorities feel off? Like, I would just say, like, look to your leaders and their behavior. And like Liz said, like, their behavior is probably dictating so much of your experience at work, as we all know. It's pretty wild. Looking back, what's one thing you wished you had figured out sooner about managing your work?
I wish that I had figured out that my manager didn't have it all together. I think that, again, coming out of school, you're just taught, okay, like, your teacher knows the way, or whoever now your manager knows the way, but like your manager is just another flawed human doing their best. And that means that maybe there's some things that they don't teach you or show you that they should have, but, for some reason or another, they just couldn't. And so I think that early on, I wish I would have kind of had been a little bit more willing to question the people that I was sort of reporting to, not in like a nasty or negative way, but just in a way that's like, well, what do I think about this situation? Like, I know you want to go in this direction. I know you want me to do this thing in this way. But what do I think about that? Because what if you're wrong? And I think that it took a while for me to get to a place to openly think, what if this person's wrong? Or like, what if this person's full of it? Like, what is versus like always turning back to me and making me the problem and thinking, okay, well, how can I change? Or why don't I understand that? Or what do I need to tweak about my attitude or my mindset? Like, no, like, what if they're wrong? And, if that's the case, how would you do this differently? And just really just opening up that pathway to just allowing yourself to think differently and make space for your own thought leadership. Because that's really, I think, where it first starts to emerge. Like when you start disagreeing with the people that you report to, it's like, okay, you're disagreeing for a reason. Follow that
thread, follow that feeling. I love that. And it is really interesting in this like age of AI, where if you think about it, AI is trained on like everything in the world that already exists. And so like if you are disagreeing with something and you're having your own thoughts, I would say before you go crowdsource ideas, like to really think about what it is you disagree with. Like I found a lot of the reasons why I am the way at work is because I felt like I was upset about people being treated unfairly in different situations. And so I find that in situations where outcomes aren't clear or expectations aren't set, I get even more frustrated in them. And so I'm like, how can I combat that? It's just an interesting thought to think about what are the things we disagree with at work? Because there's like so much. I think on an average day, I'm like, I disagree with that. I'd do that completely differently.
Yeah. And there are 100 different ways to, solve a problem. It doesn't mean that the other person is objectively wrong, but it doesn't mean you're wrong either. So like, why not see what that direction looks like? Mm-hmm.
Trust your gut. I love that we've spent almost an hour talking about systems. Two dorks talking about the systems they love. No, but it's true. Like I can't manage my HR work from just like looking at my inbox or looking at my Slacks. It's impossible. It's impossible. In your head. Yeah, this job, it's impossible. Some days it does feel like it is because the work is so wide. It's so interconnected. And it's so set with like a level of urgency that even if you try to control it, the outside parties are still pushing their urgency on you, which can feel like a lot on any given day. So having a good system in place where you can like look at your work holistically, where you can understand where you're spending your time. I even think like I love looking at like, am I spending the majority of my time in like talent and recruiting? Or am I spending it on performance? And even looking at where you spend your time can also like surface maybe issues that you could proactively solve.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm spending 45% of my time coaching managers on performance issues. Should we maybe think about what we can put in place so that I'm not spending 45% of my time coaching managers on how to put together a PIP? Like there should be something I could do that could help it. So I love the idea of systems to really help us guide this work, because this work feels never ending and at a pace that feels untenable at times. So I'm so honored you spent an hour with me to talk about that. And I think you'll be back. I feel like you've done a lot of really cool stuff, and you've been sharing about it in Safe Space, actually, like automations you build, processes you put in place, like all your learnings through ClickUp. Did I make this up? Did you build a help desk ticketing system?
I can't remember, honestly. I might have did that like
And I was like,
months ago.
you have things going on in your life, that you necessarily don't have
It's been a busy time. What is memory? I don't know.
Don't make me laugh. I'm going to start coughing. Okay, for people who want to get in touch with you, you're a member in Safe Space, but how else can they reach you to learn more about you, your coaching practice, and maybe get some help from you?
Oh, yeah. Well, find me on LinkedIn, connect, say hi. I love coffee chat. So like definitely come say hi and let's connect and talk all the things. And I do have an email list coming soon. So yes, I'll be announcing that soon.
Are you going to announce it in Safe Space, or are we going to get the tea first?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm like, can I get the secrets before anybody else gets the secrets? I just want to be the secret keeper for everything. I can't wait to see what you're building, and you'll be back, I'm sure of it. And you've given me a lot of food for thought, honestly. I cannot exist as the chaos monster that I am anymore. I really do need to get my systems in check. It's 2026. Let's just set a little goal that by the end of 2026, I will have a better system in place for managing my work. I'm going to say it and manifest it on this podcast episode. Thank you. Thank you. Always, Liz. You're the best.
Thank you. Bye.
I was like,